The nth term is just a formula which has the letter n in it. Now I know mixing numbers and letters can be quite confusing, but in the nth term, the n just stands for whichever number you are looking to find out in your pattern. Today, we're going to focus on working out the nth term inside a pattern. Now there are 4 steps to help us finding the nth term. So step number 1 is to look at our original pattern. Step number 2 will be to find out our multiples. Step number 3 will be to work out the difference between our multiples and the original pattern. And then step number 4 will be to write an algebraic rule. Okay, so that's what we're going to focus on, those 4 steps. Now, the question we're going to start with is we're going to look at this pattern. So we've got 4, 7, 10, 13 and 16. Now this is my original pattern. So what I need to do is I need to look at this pattern and find out how does this pattern increase or how does this pattern decrease, okay? Now if I look between 4 to 7, I know that the pattern goes up by 3. I can see that it's plus 3. Now let's look at the next number. To get from 7 to 10, I also need to plus 3. 10 to 13, plus 3, and 13 to 16 is also plus 3. So the first thing I can tell by looking at my original pattern is that all of my numbers in the pattern go up by 3, okay? That then helps me work out what my multiples are going to be. My multiples I'm going to use then are my 3 times table because all my numbers go up by 3, so I can use my 3 times table to work out what my rule is going to be. So directly underneath my original pattern, I'm going to write my multiples of 3. So 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15. Okay, so now I've done step 2. Now step number 3 is to work out my difference between what my multiples are and what my original pattern is. So that just means how did I get from this number to that number, this number to that number, and so on. So to get from the multiple of 3 to my pattern number 4, I need to just plus 1. To get from 6 to 7, I need to plus 1. To get from 9 to 10, plus 1. 12 to 13, plus 1. And 15 to 16 is also plus 1. Now I have completed step 3. I know what my difference is between my multiples and my original pattern. So now I'm going to work out how to write my rule for step number 4. Now, to work out my rule, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my multiples line. And I know that my multiples are going up in 3. So it's going to be 3. And then I'm going to write down n. And n is going to represent the number of the pattern. So 3 times n, okay? Then I need to always plus 1 in order to work out what my answer is going to be. So let's see if this makes sense, okay? So this is number 1 in my pattern, this is number 2 in my pattern, and so on, okay? So 3n plus 1. Let's see if it works. We're going to do 3 times 1 plus 1. So 3 times 1 is 3 plus 1 equals 4. The first number in my pattern is 4. Let's try the second one. So it's my second number in my pattern, so n is going to represent 2 this time. It's going to be 3 times 2 plus 1, which equals 7, which matches the second number in my original pattern. Let's try the third one. 3 times 3, because we're looking at the third number in my pattern, plus 1 equals 10. And that also matches up. Now this rule, 3n plus 1, could help me work out the nth term of this pattern, okay? I could use this rule to work out the 10th number in my pattern. I could use this rule to work out my 20th number in this pattern. I could use this rule to work out my millionth number in the pattern, okay? So long as I make sure that I replace my n with whichever number in the original pattern that I'm trying to find out. Let's have a look at another one. Okay, so now I've got a new pattern. I've got the numbers 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. Now, step number 1 is to look at my original pattern, okay? Try and work out how this pattern works. Now, I know to get from 3 to 5, I just need to plus 2. To get from 5 to 7, plus 2. 7 to 9 is plus 2. And 9 to 11 is plus 2, okay? That then helps me work out what my multiples are going to be. Because my pattern is going up in 2, my multiples are also going to be in 2. So just directly underneath, I'm going to write my multiples, which is step number 2. So I'm just going to write 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. okay? And that's step number 2 done. Now my third step is to work out the difference between my multiples and my original pattern. So to get from 2 to 3, I need to add 1. To get from 4 to 5, I need to add 1. To get from 6 to 7, I also need to add 1. 8 to 9, add 1. And 10 to 11 is also add 1, okay? That's step number 3 done. Now I need to work out what my rule is going to be. Now my rule is going to start with the number 2 because I'm using the multiples of 2. I'm going to put an n directly next to it because we're multiplying by any number in our pattern. And then my difference is plus 1. So my algebraic expression to work out any number inside this pattern is going to be 2n plus 1. Now let's check if it works. So we're going to try the first one, the third one, and the fifth one, okay? So 2 times 1, because it's the first number in my pattern, 2 times 1 plus 1. 2 times 1 equals 2 plus 1 is 3. It matches. Now we're going to try the third number in our pattern. So n is going to stand for 3 because that's the pattern number that we're looking at. 2 times 3 plus 1 equals 7. The third number in my original pattern is also 7. So it looks like it's working. Let's try the fifth one. So n now is going to stand for 5 because we're looking at the fifth number in our pattern. 2 times 5 plus 1 equals 11. And that is my fifth number in my pattern. So again, if my question was asking me to work out what the next number in my pattern would be, so the sixth number, all I'll need to do is 2 times 6 plus 1, which equals 13. Okay, and if I put 13 over here, I can see that to get from 11 to 13, I only need to plus 2. Therefore, I know that my rule works. Let's take a look at just one more to make sure that we've definitely nailed it. Right, the next pattern we're going to look at is this pattern here, which is 1, 5, 9, 13, and 17. So I need to first look at my original pattern and work out how does my pattern change. Now to get from 1 to 5, I need to just plus 4. To get from 5 to 9, I need to plus 4. To get from 9 to 13, I need to plus 4. And to get from 13 to 17, I just need to plus 4. So now I've looked at my original pattern, I can do step number 2, which is work out my multiples. Now because all my numbers are plus 4, I know that my multiples are also going to be in the 4 times table. So just directly underneath, I can write down my 4 times table, which is 4, 8, 12, 16 and 20. So now that's step number 2 done. Now I need to look at step 3, which is work out the difference between my multiples and my original pattern. Now to get from 4 to 1, I need to subtract 3. To get from 8 to 5, I need to subtract 3. To get from 12 to 9, I need to subtract 3. To get from 16 to 13, I need to subtract 3. To get from 20 to 17, I need to subtract 3. So that's going to help form part of my rule as well. Now that I've worked out the difference, I can work out what my rule is going to be. So my rule is going to be 4 multiplied by any number, which is represented by n, take away 3. And that would give me my answer. So remember, n just stands for any number in my pattern. So let's have a look to see if this rule also works. So we're going to try it for number 1 first. So number 1 in the sequence, so n is going to stand for 1. 4 times 1 take away 3 equals 1. And that matches. Let's try it for number 5. So n is going to stand for 5 now because we're looking at the fifth number in our pattern. 4 times by 5 take away 3, which equals 17. So it matches up. Now we could use this rule to work out the 10th number, the 20th number, the 30th number. Let's have a go at working out the 10th number. So we're going to do we're going to pretend that n stands for 10 because we're looking for the 10th number in our sequence. So rather than sit there and just keep plussing 4 and keep plussing 4 and keep plussing 4 until we get to the 10th one, we're just going to use this formula to make our lives a little bit easier. So we're going to do 4 times 10. N is going to stand for 10 because it's the 10th number that we're looking for. So 4 times 10, which is 40. Then we're going to take away 3, which is 37. So the 10th number in my sequence would be 37. Now I can use this rule to work out what my 100th one would be, what my 50th one would be, even what my millionth one would be. So working out the nth term is a really good way for us to work out any number in our sequence without physically working out how each number goes from one to the other. So it's a faster way for us to work out our sequence. So my top tip is to use those 4 steps to solve the nth term. So step number 1 is look at the original pattern and work out how the pattern either increases or decreases. Step number 2, work out our multiples, so what our multiples are going to be, and write them directly underneath. Step number 3 is to work out the difference between your multiples and your original pattern. And then step number 4 is to work out your rule. But don't get confused. Remember, n can stand for any number that we want, and n stands for whatever number we're using in our pattern. So n can stand for 1, it can stand for 2, it can stand for 50, it can stand for 40. It can stand for any number. If you click down in the link description box below, you'll be able to access a worksheet created by me where you can have a go at working out the nth term in lots of different patterns. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe.